Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Ooh, all right, wake up. Okay, lunch wasn't that heavy, you know, it didn't get you and pull you down there. I'm Daryl Olszewski. I'm the pastoral associate here at St. James. I've been here for just a little over 3 months. People ask me if I have replaced Pat Knuth. Nobody can replace Pat Knuth. But I do have her position, her previous position, and she left me a lot of work on that desk. I have her desk too. So I'm happy to be here. This is an incredible place here at St. James. I've just been impressed with all of the things that have been going on. This is my first immersion into the gift program here. Last year when I was on sabbatical, I taught in a couple different parishes in the gift program, adult sessions, and got to experience what was happening. Pretty much the model is the same in every parish. You always start with food. You got to feed people, and then you kind of let it settle there. And then you have the speaker come in after everybody's just kind of relaxing and pulling down, and I gotta keep you awake. That's my job for the next 50 minutes. Your kids will be awake. They don't have any problem. They just have that energy constantly. Hold on, Andy. Thanks. I think we're still on. I didn't want to trip over that cord and get that charge to my account here if I break off that attachment there. All right, I have about 35 years of parish experience. I have taught at all levels, from preschool on up through adult and college level. Education is really my background. That's where I was really educated, but I've done just about everything in a parish. I am married. My wife and I have 2 adult children, so I know what it's like to raise children. We have 1 grandchild and another on the way. So I understand family life, and I understand a little bit about, you know, what you have to do in a family in order to pass on the faith to children. One of the things, I know it's not politically correct, but I do have to compliment all the men who are here. I mean, this is unusual, and that's great. And I could see, you know, a couple broken arms. They were twisted maybe to come here or something, or your ears are just a little stretched out as you were dragged here. If not, you came willingly. God bless you for that. It's great to see families working together. I think that's just a real testimony to the faith that is here, and the faith that you are sharing together and want to pass on with your children. That's just beautiful. So I affirm you for that. So often we rely on the women. The mothers are the ones that often have that responsibility. It's not written anywhere, but it's just somehow it seems like it's passed on to them. It's like, oh, you take care of that. And it's great to see all the guys here today. So thanks for coming. Today's topic is the Bible and social justice. No way we're going to accomplish all of that in 50 minutes, but we're going to hit just, I hope, what will be the main part. My approach is going to be this. It's going to be pretty much as a parent. And most of you are parents. Not all of you necessarily have little children. All of us, though, have a responsibility for passing on the faith, whether we have brought little children here or bigger children, whether we have come as a single and live in a community. We pass on the faith to our neighbors, to our friends. All of us, in a sense, are teachers. We all have a responsibility for handing on the faith. So I look upon this afternoon as a faculty meeting. This is our faculty meeting. You're all teachers, and we're here to get pepped up a little bit, to get hyped about the content that we have, if nothing else, for the rest of the day. Hopefully it'll last and you'll be able to carry it on tomorrow and get it going through the rest of the week and maybe even beyond. But what we're going to be looking at is the content of the Bible and social justice. So today's our faculty meeting. I'm going to look at some of the content and hopefully give you some methods that you can use for sharing the faith, especially in your families, but more importantly, that you really reflect upon it yourself. So this is our faculty meeting. 2 textbooks that are important for you as teachers. One is the Bible. You have to have a Bible. You got to have this as a textbook if you will, in your home. And I see a number of you have Bibles. You have I would recommend the New American Version of the Bible. Get a New American Version of the Catholic Bible, because that is the translation that is used in our liturgy. So that's the reason for doing that, so it will line up the same way. Many of you are using the New American Catholic Youth Bible, and that's great because it has commentary and notes on the side for you. Kind of has the cheat sheets, and every teacher needs that in your manual. You got to have, you got to have the commentary on the side so you know what's going on. You got to know the answers, right, when your kids are asking. So that's a good one. Whatever it is, make sure you have a copy of the Bible that is more than a doorstop in your home. Okay, have it open. Open it up, if nothing else, to the passage that is, for instance, next week's Sunday's Gospel. Just leave it open somewhere to that particular passage that you're looking at it. For so long, Catholics, your parents and people like me, we grew up not knowing really that there was a Bible. We heard about the Bible, but we weren't really allowed to look at it. We would hear stories from the Bible, but we really never knew exactly where they came from. It's hard to believe for a generation like yours that there was a time when Catholics really were not permitted to read the Bible. That the church didn't want people to misinterpret it, so they said, don't read it. Just listen to it on Sundays, and the priest will tell you everything you need to know about the Bible. Finally, it was around Vatican II in the late 1960s that Catholics were given that freedom. So that's 40-some years ago. People could finally open up the Bible, given that freedom to look at it, to read it, and study it. And that's an important aspect, that we see what's coming out of the Bible, that we see the context for it. And we're going to look at a couple things for that today. The importance of the Bible is that it is the element. I mean, it is the text. It is the foundation of our faith. You know, here at St. James, Father Art believes that baseball is the paradigm for life, right? You've heard that? Has he talked about baseball at all in any homilies? Has he made any reference to baseball at all? You haven't been in church then, okay. He does. He loves baseball. Today, when he was down here, what did he have on? He had his Brewers hat on, right? I mean, poor guy. It's too bad. It's all over for them. But he believes that baseball is the paradigm, the model for all of life. Well, you know, he's not far off on that, because the Bible is really all about baseball. Bet you didn't know that, huh? You didn't know that the Bible was all about baseball. In fact, if you look at it, you open it up to the book of Genesis, the opening line, what does it say? How does it start out? In the big inning. Right? It starts out that way. In the big inning. Right. See, it's all about baseball. It's all about baseball. So make sure you get a copy of the Bible. The other thing I'd recommend as a text for yourselves is a catechism. Now, this is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It was published originally around 1995, was revised about the year 2000, just with some editorial corrections. This is the official teachings of the Catholic Church, if you will. It's not put in a catechism style that you or your parents may be used to. This is not your mother's catechism. This is not the question and answer one. You know, who made you? God made you. Why did God make you? God made us to know, love, and serve Him. It's not that kind of book. What it does, it takes the topics and puts them into little paragraphs to answer a variety of topics, all the things that we really need to know in the church. This is your book. This is you know, when your kids ask you something, say, I'll get back to you on that. And then then you read that and you come out and say, oh, I found that answer. Now I know, where to look for that. So you just buy yourself a little time. This is the hard copy of it. There are paperback editions that are a little bit more economical. And we're going to look at, on your handout, we're going to go through and see 3 sections of that today. See the kind of answers, if you will, that it gives, the kind of information that it gives. But it's not not question and answer, but when people ask, what does the church teach about something? That's the place to look. We are Catholics. Our foundational belief is that we believe in both the scriptures and in our traditions. Traditions being not just the rituals that are passed on from generation to generation, but the traditions of our beliefs that have developed over the years that flow from our scriptures and our understanding of Jesus Christ. So these two really form a combination of your manuals as teachers of what you need to be aware of, or at least have as the resources, so that when your children ask you something, when you have your own questions, that you can go and look in a book like the Catechism to at least get a succinct answer to it. You may need to do further reading, you may need to talk to someone else about it, but at least you have those answers. So those are two recommendations. They're my personal recommendations. They're not requirements for the program, okay? So I don't want you to say, oh my gosh, this program is costing us more and more money. Now we got to go out and buy, a catechism for $30. No, you don't have to, but I recommend it, okay? It's a good thing to have. All right, in the beginning, that is really where social justice starts. When we're looking at social justice, we find it right at the beginning of the Bible. The Bible itself. If you want to know everything the Catholic Church teaches about social justice, you'll find it right in here. Because this is where it begins. The church has developed further traditions and teachings, but it comes from the Bible. It all basically begins here. What is social justice? What is social justice? What do you think of? What comes into your mind when you hear social justice? Just give me a couple quick thoughts. What comes into your mind? I roam around. Go ahead. The wheels are turning. Go ahead.
Of resources or
resources. Okay, like food. Okay, for instance, food. The spreading around of resources, global resources. What else comes to mind when you think of social justice? Money. Okay, the economic resources. What else comes to mind? Fairness. Good. Okay, fairness, resources, economy. All these things really come down to relationships. That is the basis for social justice. Social justice is based on relationships and how we interact with other people, how we interact with God and with others. Look on the first major paragraph that you have on your handout there. Whatever you do to the least of these, you have done to me. From Matthew 25:40. Matthew 25:40. The last judgment scene in Matthew's gospel, where Jesus will come in his glory and come to judge people. And on his right he will put those who are the sheep, and on his left he will put those who are the goats. He will separate people on the right and on the left. And then he will say to those on his right, "Come, blessed of my Father, for I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me to drink." And they'll say, "Lord, when did we see you that way?" He said, "Whenever you did it for any one of the least of my brothers or sisters, you did it for me." Then he will say to those on the left, "I was hungry, you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you didn't give me to drink." They say, "Well, Lord, when did we see you?" He said, "Same answer. Whenever you did not do it for the least, then you weren't doing it for me." And those will go off to eternal damnation. The problem I have with the gospel is I never know which side to stand on in the final judgment seat. I lose sleep over that. When do you face, is Jesus going to be facing us? Which way do you want to be? No, that's not the most important question. Most important question is that we live out these commands, these corporal works of mercy, that we respond. Jesus will sort us out. He'll put us on the right side that we're supposed to be, on the right side or the left side. The point is, social justice is relationships with other people and our relationship with God. It's all tied in together. How many of you have heard of original sin? Okay, all of you should have heard original sin, right? Why do we celebrate baptism? We celebrate baptism because we immerse people into a new life in Christ. that changes the way the world was, that gives them a new chance to transform the world, that they move beyond original sin. So much of our theology seems to begin with original sin. We begin with thinking about original sin in terms of the story of creation, in the beginning, right? Right at the start of the Bible, that first story of creation. Original sin. The opposite of original sin. What's the opposite of original sin? Some of you are looking. You can see the answer on your paper. What the church says, and it's on there, is original justice. It's called original justice. The way the world was created was in a state of original justice. Think about that, what that means. Original justice means there was a harmony in the world. Everything was working smoothly. Everything was just working right. The relationships between people and God were just right. The relationships in creation were just right. The days were always beautiful. The weather was always fine. The water never rose higher than it was supposed to and into anybody's basements or, any of that stuff. It was just, creation was just right. There was this great harmony. That image that we have is the image that we picture when we talk about, for instance, the Garden of Eden. It was this perfect, ideal state. That was what the church calls original justice. Right below that there, I have 3 quotes for you. These are, the CCC are from the the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That's what CCC stands for. Catechism of the Catholic Church. The numbers after that are the paragraphs. In the Catechism, and you can look at this after a while if you want, you will see that every paragraph is numbered. So for easy reference, you can find a reference to a particular number of the item if you're cross-referencing in some way. The first humans were not only created good, but were also established in friendship with the Creator and in harmony with themselves and with creation around them, in a state that would be surpassed only by the glory of the new creation in Christ. They were created in harmony. Oh, I'm sorry.
Does anybody else have one?
Everybody else have one? Okay. They were created in a state of harmony. A state of harmony. An interesting word that the church uses to describe the perfection of this state at the time of creation. The church, interpreting the symbolism of biblical language in an authentic way in light of the New Testament and tradition, teaches that our first parents, Adam and Eve, were constituted in an original state of holiness and justice. Adam and Eve lived in a state of holiness and justice. Now, Adam and Eve are symbols. That's what they're saying, interpreting the symbolism of that, but that at the beginning of time, at the beginning of creation, there was a harmony in our world. The inner harmony of the inner person, each one of us has an inner harmony, our own inner relationship, that we feel good about ourselves, that we affirm our own self-worth, that we are indeed created in the image and likeness of God. The harmony between a man and a woman, and the family, the harmony between the first couple in all creation, comprised a state called original justice. So file that away. That's a new term, perhaps, that you hadn't heard before. So often we think of original sin. Most of us are familiar with that. But here's an opposing term, and that is original justice, that the world was created in a state of original justice and harmony. That's an important concept because that is the foundational principle in the church for all that happens in social justice afterwards. Because what happened with original sin then? We moved out of that state of original justice. Original sin created the disharmony in relationships. Think about that when you think about what happened between Adam and Eve, the first human relationship that was created in harmony and then moved into sin and disharmony. Imagine what it was like that first night outside of the garden. Suddenly, they had moved from this wonderful paradise where everything was perfect, where their communication between themselves was perfect, where their relationship was one of like two honeymooners. You know, just this new couple, fresh from their marriage, and just everything was ideal and perfect. And now suddenly, they're outside of this state of original justice and harmony. Imagine that first night. No home, no covering. The mosquitoes are biting them. The chill is getting them. It's cold. All they had was a fig leaf to cover them. And the chill between them in their relationship must have been something. We have the first couple argument. Why did you do that? Why did you take the bite out of it? Well, where were you? Why weren't you around to help me? You know? And you get all this kind of stuff going on, and then you have the great chill, no doubt, that perhaps it hasn't happened to you, but maybe you've seen about it or read about it, in books, or you've seen it in movies or something like that, where the relationship just kind of goes frozen and they don't talk to each other. The disharmony that happens in a relationship. Almost every Saturday, we have people who come together either in the chapel or here in church who try to recreate original justice. They turn to each other, they pledge their love to each other, they have sparkles in their eyes. I will love, honor, and cherish you all the days of my life. They can barely get the words out. They're gasping for air. They're so much in love. And they try to create that state of original justice and harmony. And then somebody, somewhere down the line, takes the bite out of the apple. And that's all lost. That's all lost. But we go back and we try to recreate that harmony once again, because that's why we celebrate marriage as a sacrament in Christ. That's why we are baptized, to be able to renew our faith, to renew our lives. What we are constantly trying to do is to return to the state of original justice. We are working to try to do that. The point is, it begins in relationships. And it begins in the relationship that we have between a husband and a wife. It begins in a family. That is where the state of original justice begins for all of us, that we look at it and try to see it. It has to begin in the family, the relationship between a husband and wife. That's the start of it. So what do you do, those of you who are married, husband and wife, do to return and try to create and recreate that state of original justice on a daily basis? That is the beginning of understanding the church's teaching on social justice. What you do to try to recreate that. The story of creation, there are two accounts there. I've listed both of those for you because the first one deals with the harmony of the days and the nights and the trees and the water and the birds and all that. How interesting that at the beginning of the Bible there is this harmony that is in and over the earth. And to think about just what recently in the news, I mean, what's the big hot button issue regarding creation? Hot button is the key word there. Global warming, right. Global warming is the big issue. And what's underneath the issue of global warming is how each one of us responds to creation and how we use the resources. And that's where it is, the resources. How do we use the resources of this earth? What do we do to contribute to a return to social justice, to that original justice of creation? Now, certainly it's a political issue because it's become part of our agenda. We're going to hear more about it in the presidential elections. And now that Al Gore has won the Peace Prize, and some people say, well, that was a political thing. That's beside the point. The point is that the issue is in front of us, and to address it, of how we respond to this earth. That is church teaching, to restore ourselves back to that original justice, that we should work towards that. How we do that, the practical application about that, of course, has many divergent opinions. There are a lot of different ways that we look upon that and see how that should be done. But there is that call for harmony with creation. Just in simple things, even here today, what have we done to help or to hinder the earth and our resources? Some people will say, the use of, the styrofoam, which ends up in landfill, harms the earth. And we should actually wash the dishes. We should use china and wash the dishes and so forth. Simple things like that. But that would take more time, and it's not convenient, and it has all sorts of other implications. And if anybody's in the kitchen listening to this, they're looking at me and going, well, you do the dishes then. And it's the same kind of thing. Are you going to stay and do the dishes? Well, no, nobody really wants to stay and do the dishes. So we live in a convenient society. But just raise those things because they're before us. Your children are bringing them home from school, the issues of the environment. And say, Mom and Dad, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that. You see the big SUV, maybe we could get a little smaller car, or maybe can we walk instead of, this. And of course, let them walk, And they say, well, you walk to soccer practice, That's only 5.5 miles. That'd be good exercise. What are you doing? You're going to get exercise anyway, so you might as well get it on the way, right? Just get your muscles going, things like that. It raises all kinds of practical questions, some that are difficult to answer, but the important thing is that it raises the broad issue of trying to recreate that harmony, that original justice of creation, all over for us. Then social justice moves beyond the couple to couple, family. It moves beyond that to broader issues. At the bottom, I put down two different things there. The concise laws of harmony, and that should not be the concise laws. It's not like these are the only ones that you find that kind of express harmony in the Bible, but these are some of the summary ones. For instance, the 10 Commandments are a real good summary of social harmony. First 3 commandments pertain to whom? God. First 3 pertain to God, and the last 7 pertain to human relationships. What's the first one that deals with a human relationship? Sorry, I won't. Good. Good. Thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. Right? Remember that? First one. It's the one you should know, because it's the one that you want to pass on to your children, right? Remember the 4th commandment. Honor your father and mother. Listen to them. Obey them. Be good to them. Okay? Why? It is the only commandment that has a promise associated with it. It's really kind of a Star Trek thing, if any of you are Trekkies. Because it really kind of says, because you will live long and prosper. That's basically what it says. Honor your father and mother, that you may prosper and have a long life, that you may live well. That comes as a promise. Did God say it that way as he gave it to Moses? Maybe. But you know what I think it was? I think it was a rabbi who was writing these down, and was maybe having a tough day with his teenage kids, and he said, yeah, okay, I'm going to honor your father and mother, that you may have a long life and prosper, because if not, I may kill you by the time I get home, kind of thing. So it could have been a little bit of an addition there. We don't know, a little editorializing. But the point is that it is the first one that begins with the human relationship between parent and child. It focuses on the family. The family is the basic unit in society. It is the basic unit of creation. The other laws, or concise laws of harmony, some others that I put down there, the Beatitudes are down there. Blessed are the poor in spirit, and so forth. I've put down the citations so that you could look at those. That's a nice summary, the 8 or 9 Beatitudes. Luke also has a version. Luke has a real nice version because Luke goes with 4 Beatitudes and then 4 woes. If you don't do these, watch out. Here's what's going to happen to you, kind of thing. And then Mark 12, the greatest commandment, love God with your whole mind, soul, and heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. That summarizes all of social justice teaching. Love God and love others the way you would love yourself. That's it. That's the basis of it. If you want it right there in a handful, that's all you need. That's it. The rest becomes the application, and it is the harder part. Social justice, if you haven't caught this yet, begins in the family. Okay, so it's right here. You are the ones that have to teach this. You are the ones that have to do it. You are the ones that are going and have already shown your children what it's like. It's about the harmony in a relationship between husband and wife, between brother and brother, sister and sister, child to parent, parent to child. It also extends beyond that. Jesus kind of answered this question and saying, showing it's about family by saying, who is my family? And he answered it by saying, the one who does the will of my Father is my family. That's the one that creates the social harmony. That's the one that gets us back to the original justice. When someone does my will, then we are family. There are certainly plenty of expressions of family law or family rules, especially throughout the Old Testament, if you will, because the family unit was bigger than just mother, father, and 2.8 children. It was bigger. It was the clan. It was, we're all family. Everybody is related to each other in some way because we had nomadic people moving around together. We had intermarriage. Everybody was related to somebody else. It's like a very small town, and you find people related to each other. So you cared for the whole family. And so looking at the top of the second page on the back there, you have laws that talk about caring for one's parents. For instance, from Sirach, my child, take care of your father when he is old. Grieve him not as long as he lives. In Eastern countries, I worked at a parish on the north side of Milwaukee, St. Catherine's, for 6 years, where we had priests from India, from the country of India, who would stay there for a 3-year stint while they were studying at Marquette University, working on a master's, and then also going out and doing missionary talks. Every time they came over, I would try to immerse them into life in the United States. I would take them on some of the parish calls and do some of the things. Every time we went to the nursing home, first time we'd go to the nursing home, they were just blown away by that. They could not understand the concept of nursing homes. They said in India there are no nursing homes unless only for the poor and the neglected, the Mother Teresa type situations. But otherwise, when the elderly got sick and frail, they were brought into the home. They were brought into one's family and cared for by one's children. It was often the women, so it would often be a daughter-in-law, for instance, who would have to care for her in-laws. But that was expected. That was the family responsibility, passed on from generation to generation, because someday you would be sick and elderly and want your family to care for you rather than putting you away. They didn't even have a place to put you. You'd only be in a nursing home if you were abandoned by your family, totally disregarded. Everyone were dead. It's kind of like being the opposite of being orphaned as a child, but orphaned as an adult, that no one knew you, that you were cast off. That is very important. That's the kind of concept that's being talked about here, to care for a family. Now, we do that in our own way, in our culture, in our society, by trying to provide the best possible nursing home care, you know. But how many of your parents have said to you, don't ever put me in one of those places, you know? So don't ever do that, you know. You watch your grandparents go, and they say, now when I get to be that age, don't do that. You know, they make you swear on a Bible, and then what happens? They get a stroke, and they go, uh-oh. And then they look at you, you know, like, where am I? I'm in this place where I told you never to put me. And yet what you try to do, you try to reassure them that you have put them into the best possible place to find the best possible care for them. That is the way we deal with it in our society, that we do use nursing care, use professionals to care for our elderly, and that's our situation. So we're not violating, you know, the law here. The concept is to care for the elderly in some loving way. But at the time of Sirach in the Old Testament, at the time of Jesus, and in many countries in the world today, there are no nursing homes. There is not that kind of situation. So it's the responsibility of the family to care for one. Here's a good one, that second one. If a man dies without children, his brother shall marry his wife. Okay, you guys think about that one. Think about your sisters-in-law. All right. I'll just let you dwell with that one for a while if you have to. All right. But, you know, if your brother, you say, oh, my brother, please live. It's a good reason sometimes for taking care of your brother, you know, making sure and doing everything possible to make sure that no harm befalls your brother, because you just, you know, you don't want to end up marrying your sister-in-law, okay? But that was a law, again, in the family. The reason for it was to care for the family, to make sure that the family was preserved, and also that the generational lines would be carried on. It was all part of self-preservation, all that kind of thing. But it's all part of family, social justice beginning there. Then family life. Two New Testament letter references to that, Colossians and Ephesians. Don't look at Colossians unless you want to get the disharmony in your family, because that's the one that begins with wives should be obedient to their husbands. Okay, so you probably don't want to use that as a good starting point for their scripture study today, all right? But that's in there, and there's a whole nother context to that one. Use the one from Ephesians, because Ephesians talks about children. Listen to your parents. So begin with that one. That's a good one if you want a reference to family harmony. Family harmony. Don't wait for your family to be perfect before you move out and widen the circle of social justice. You're going to wait till the cows come home. You know, it could take a long, long time for that to happen. You say, you know, we're just not unless some of you are. If you have a perfect family, well then, okay, move on to the second step right away, okay? But I suspect most of you are like most families, and you have a little disharmony happening here and there. Well, you keep working with that. You keep working with that. But as you're working with that, you are also setting the groundwork then for the broader, wider issues, the more global issues, if you will. Backseat Christians and road rage. I mean, that's certainly one thing that comes to my mind. That's why I pointed it out there. As I talk to parents, you know, you spend a lot of time on the road, because you're taking kids to soccer, to basketball, to volleyball, to all kinds of activities, and you're driving, and the kids, sometimes you have a van full of kids because you've picked up the neighbors and you've picked up everybody else, and there's a lot of chit-chat going on in the back seat and around you, and sometimes you're leaning back trying, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. You're learning a lot of things from your children. You're learning a lot of things about your children's friends and their family and their teachers, and all kinds of things are going on. But when you're with them, they are also watching you and listening to you. And what you are saying, how you are reacting to the harmony of the community of the roadway. And that's where road rage comes into play. What do you do when you're driving? What does that look like, and what are you teaching them? Are you on the horn? I've recently found out, it was pointed out to me, that the horn can only be used to chase animals. That's the only time a horn is really supposed to be used. I didn't know that. Somebody told me that there was a law that you're only supposed to honk the horn if like there's an animal on the road and you're supposed to honk it. Other times you're not supposed to use it. Well, I've solved that problem. Squirrel, squirrel. That's all. So I just yell squirrel anytime I hit the horn. That's all. Could be a lot of different reasons, but I just yell squirrel. That's all. Because we use the horn for an expression of lots of different things. But our children are watching that. They're watching how we drive. They're watching our actions and reactions, and they're watching what we say about others. That is the harmony of the community that sometimes goes on in simple ways. And we're trying to get back to the original justice. It doesn't mean we're being treated justly. I love these roads where there's construction 5 miles away. They say left lane ends 5 miles. And you can see the arrow starting to point in. Beep, beep, beep. Left lane ends 4 miles. Left lane ends 3 miles. And the 2 right lanes, traffic is just backed up and really thick because people know that left lane is going to end. But sure enough, all the way along on that left lane comes a car right to the point. Right to that point where that arrow is flashing and going in, and they sneak right in. They just come right in there. Usually the plates are from Illinois. I don't know. But I'm sorry. My wife's from Illinois, that's why I said it. But it's things like that irritate us, that create the disharmony in our world, and that we get picked upon, and we want to respond, we want to react in some way, and so we go bumper to bumper in those two right lanes. You can't get spit in between those bumpers, let alone get anybody in there. But somehow they get in. Somehow they find their way in, and then we just become furious. The social disharmony that happens in our world, and we're put upon, we're picked upon. We are a people of original sin, and our mission as Christians is to try to recreate that state of original justice, and we have to work at it. So be careful when you're driving, and what you're saying out loud to your back seat congregation. What's going on there? Because we are all teachers, and what are we teaching all the time? As we expand, we move from the interpersonal relationships, we move to the ones in the family, and then we move into the community and how that works. But ultimately, we become part of the nation, and what we do affects what's going on in the nation. And I used one quote there, and it's the quote from Isaiah that is actually in the cornerstone of the United Nations building, that they shall beat their swords into plowshares. That we take the weapons of destruction and transform them into implements of peace, that transformation. And that scripture is actually used at the United Nations, right on the building there, to show the implications of what happens in the world. A number of years ago, about 15 years ago, I participated in a workshop called The World Game. And it was an organization that came out of Philadelphia. They came to St. Mary's Parish, where Father Art and I were a long time ago. And the organization brought in a map of the world, a map that they placed on the gym floor. So it was a gym floor size of a basketball court. And it was the proper dimensions, because if you take a globe and you step on it, it doesn't come out right, but they had the proper dimensions. And we had about 200 people participate in this workshop, but they used, the World Game used about 100 people to participate in the World Game. It's not like Monopoly, but in a sense it could be. Well, there were 100 people, each one representing 1% of the world's population, who stood on the map, on the land masses of the globe. Also, there were 100 loaves of bread, each one representing 1% of the world's food supply, and 100 flashlights, each one representing 1% of the Earth's energy resources. Well, the facilitators took the loaves of bread and divided them up the way the food resources are divided in the world. In the United States, there was this great pyramid of loaves of bread. I forgot the exact amount, but I mean, the bread was piled kind of like this high. The flashlights also, which were turned on as the gym was darkened, just set ablaze this gym, all coming from the United States. There were 6 people standing on the landmass of the United States, the continental United States. 6 people, and probably at least 70, maybe 80% of the resources of the loaves of bread and the energy. I remember very distinctly, they had 100 people over in the Asian area where China and India was. People were pushing each other to stay on the landmass because otherwise they'd be in the water. There wasn't real water, but they didn't want to step into the ocean. And they were standing like this, just fighting for space. And there were only a handful of the loaves of bread and a couple flashlights. It showed vividly, and then there was a whole dynamic that went on for 4 hours of interacting among the nations and so forth. But it showed vividly the injustice of the resources, of exactly what you mentioned as what do we think about in terms of social justice. That whatever we do affects some other part of the world. This is still going on today. There's still this great imbalance as we try to return to the original justice of harmony in creation, where all people are treated equally. The last part, some practical applications before we leave. Karl Barth, a Swiss Protestant theologian who was very prominent during the 1900s. I studied him, I read some of his books. I don't remember a heck of a lot, but I do remember one thing that he wrote. He said, there are 2 things a Christian should read every day: the Bible and the newspaper, and never one without the other. To read both of them, the Bible and the newspaper. And of course, he was writing before we had laptops and access to the internet and so forth. He was talking about, hard copy, like this kind of stuff, But you can read it in whatever way that you want. But it's amazing. You read the Bible, and sure enough, no doubt you will find an article that deals with social injustice and the call to create harmony. Seeking solutions to child poverty. And in today's journal, which I wasn't able to snatch off the kitchen table, there's a big symposium in the journal on poverty. They had a roundtable discussion, and the Crossroads section deals with that. Last week's Crossroads section dealt with Father Grappi and the housing march, the march across the viaduct in Milwaukee, which was, I remember it, I'm old enough to remember it, really upset people of my nationality as they marched, as the black community marched into the Polish South Side, and it was ugly, it was vicious. Read the paper and the Bible every day and you'll find things. A suggestion I have, if you're looking at the paper and a family activity, if each member of your family were a country, or if you were a country as a family, what country might you be? Pick a country. And then have each member of your family go around and create a headline story of what's happening in your country. So, for instance, there might be, women are not allowed to speak here. Or there is injustice for the women in this family. Now that might come from your 13-year-old daughter. That's the kind of thing that they might put as a headline in your family. Let them kind of experiment with that. The last thing is to use scripture quotes, put them in a jar, such as the Corporal Works of Mercy. You can find them, I think you got them on a handout today, but you also find them in Matthew 25. Put one in a jar, pull it out. What are we going to do this week to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked? Or November 2nd, All Souls Day, bury the dead. What do we do to show our respect for the dead? Just have those prominently displayed so that your children learn these. Next week's gospel, the persistent widow. Who is crying out for justice? Who is crying out for harmony? Who do you know that is doing that? Are you raising your hand? See, we already have somebody who would have a headline there. All right. It's not fair in my house. Right. Okay. That so many people would, but what about in the larger circle of our families? I'm almost done. Give me 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds.
Who is crying out? As you focus on that, a good discussion on who needs the attention to create harmony. Look at that for next week. God bless you at the work you do. I hope you create harmony in your families, because if you do, that's going to create harmony in the neighborhoods, in society, in the world. This will be a great world after you have this wonderful spirit of harmony in your families. Thank you for your attention.